This is every episode of SpongeBob that has scenes that were deleted from the show. And today, we're going over all of them, starting off with the episode Shang-Haired. This one wasted no time, as the intro to this episode is often not found in reruns. The original episode starts off with Patchy the Pirate saying that he will watch his favorite episode. Then he gets launched out of a cannon by Potty. The extended version also shows the aftermath, with a burnt Patchy coming back with his usual positive attitude. And the line,
"Well, roll the cartoon."
Continuing into the episode, SpongeBob and Squidward's houses both get smashed by an anchor. In response to this, both of them, along with Patrick, climb the rope to find themselves aboard the Flying Dutchman ship. Now, this was no ordinary ship, of course, and was home to the Dutchman ghost, who tried to scare the trio. This fails miserably and earns Squidward a scorching, followed by a trip to the Fly of Despair. Now, in my opinion, this should have been the scene to be edited, but Nickelodeon decided that that was perfectly okay. He then curses the other two to a lifetime of service to him as his crew. SpongeBob and Patrick's plan was to help horrify the citizens of Bikini Bottom, but it doesn't go according to plan, leading to scenes such as this. Just as SpongeBob and Patrick start loving their new jobs, the Dutchman decides that he got enough of this run. He immediately informs the pair that he intends to eat them. They obviously weren't fond of this idea, so they escaped through the dreaded perfume department. Once they're successful, they steal the Dutchman's dining socks, as he doesn't eat without them. In the fight that ensues, the Dutchman poses a deal in exchange for the sock. He will grant them 3 wishes. Here's where the magic happens, as in the edited episode, the first 2 wishes are wasted, and SpongeBob uses the final wish to get out. But when Shang-Haired had first aired, the 3rd wish was actually left up to the audience in a phone voting system. But that's not all, as there were alternative endings too. In one ending, Squidward gets the final say, and he wishes that he had never met SpongeBob and Patrick. This, however, backfires on him. In the other ending, Patrick wishes for gum as his final wish in a very classic dumb Patrick move. But while this was a good episode, this next one took the amount of deleted and altered scenes to a whole nother level, while also staying relatable. I'm talking about the episode Procrastination. This episode has not 1, not 2, but 3 deleted scenes. The episode starts with SpongeBob needing to write an essay for class, but he ends up getting distracted by his friends playing outside. Things only get worse as SpongeBob starts doing every other task except for the essay. Things hit a peak when SpongeBob enters a lucid state, suddenly seeing all of his possessions conspiring against him and his work. He watches as a flame lights up his house, burning the paper as well. Thankfully, he soon wakes up realizing that this was all part of a nightmare, but not everything was solved, as SpongeBob realizes that it was 5 minutes before class. He speedruns the assignment, making the deadline, but what he doesn't realize is that the class was canceled, and all of his efforts were in vain as the episode closed. Now, as relatable as all this was, what die-hard fans realized is that in the original, there were 3 scenes that were quietly scrubbed from the episode. The first one is when SpongeBob is distracted by his friends playing. In the original clip, there was actually a shot of Patrick rubbing sunscreen on Sandy's back. It was deemed suggestive and edited out. The second one is even more bizarre. When SpongeBob fantasizes about what would happen after he finishes the essay, this clip was shown. It was meant to be a joke for the running gag that SpongeBob always crashes when he takes his boating test. Apparently, it was this time that the editors felt that kids might reenact it in real life. But to top it all off comes the weirdest scene. In one of the tasks he does to avoid the essay, SpongeBob exercises, and it led to this scene. But this was also considered suggestive and had to be cut out. But in the end, SpongeBob thankfully got his essay done. But now, let's talk about the next deleted scenes in the episode Just One Bite. Just how far could one go to get a Krabby Patty? Well, Squidward's about to answer that in the deleted scene we're about to look at. The episode starts off like any other in the Krusty Krab. Squidward was, as usual, hating his job. He says that he hates Krabby Patties, despite never actually trying one. A loyal SpongeBob then tries to get him a Krabby Patty, and after some fighting, Squidward Squidward finally takes a bite of one. Squidward's opinion on the Krabby Patty seems to remain unchanged, as he angrily says that the Krabby Patty was the worst food he has ever eaten.
Krabby Patty may be the most horrible, putrid, disgusting excuse for a sandwich to have slither down my throat,
and buries the patty to its death. But when SpongeBob leaves being defeated, Squidward desperately digs up the patty and eats the remains. As the realization hits, he is no better than the rest of them and loves the infamous burgers. He wants to have more, but his pride won't allow him to admit his mistakes, so he tries to sneak one. This, however, does not end well for him. Luckily for us, this does not kill his hopes and desires. In fact, it will lead Squidward to have a dream about Krabby Patties as his wife, and most importantly, the cursed deleted scene. You see, in the edited episode, Squidward simply sneaks into the Krusty Krab and finds the patty vault. He gets his wish and lives happily ever after, but his journey was not so simple at the start. In the original episode, as Squidward enters the Krusty Krab, he gets flamed up by 2 buckets of gas as booby traps and security, but it was for a good reason, as this episode aired after one of the most tragic moments in history, 9/11. Nickelodeon did not want to use any explosions at that time, since it was a sensitive issue, but while Squidward played it relatively safe in his love for Krabby Patties, SpongeBob took it to a whole nother level in this next deleted scene. In the episode To Love a Patty, everyone knows how loyal SpongeBob is to the Krusty Krab and Krabby Patties, but this episode takes that idea to its absolute limits. It starts off with SpongeBob making a lot of Krabby Patties. He falls in love with one of them and ends up calling it Patty. SpongeBob genuinely believes in her and eventually brings her home. The pair start dating and doing ridiculous couple activities together. As the episode goes on, Patty slowly spoils, but this doesn't seem to bother SpongeBob, as he takes Patty to a date at the Krusty Krab. Everyone tries to talk some sense into SpongeBob, as the rancid smell was driving everyone away, but SpongeBob doesn't give in until he smells Patty, which seems to break the trance. He then realizes what he must do and eats Patty. While the general concept of this episode was innocent, there was one scene which would have changed everyone's mind. Originally, there was a scene where SpongeBob wakes up in nothing but his underwear next to the Krabby Patty that had bite marks in it. Luckily, the scene was deemed too suggestive and removed from the episode altogether. But both Squidward and SpongeBob's lives don't get any easier in the next episode, SpongeBob in Random Land. A token of appreciation is often good, but that's not what happened in SpongeBob in Random Land from season 12. The episode starts off with Mr. Krabs and his usual obsession with money. So when an order comes in from Random Land, a dangerous town where nobody can predict what can happen, Krabs sees a fortune waiting to be made. So he forces SpongeBob and Squidward to deliver the order, and so they begin their journey. The episode documents this quest of finding the customer in Random Land, all while witnessing just how random the place really is. SpongeBob and Squidward don't give up no matter the obstacle, and finally find their customer. But it wasn't before going through this scene. But this scene was never supposed to be this innocent. In the original scene, an appreciation of Squidward fan art came this jump scare. Safe to say, a lot of kids were frightened by this, causing Nickelodeon to quietly edit it out of the reruns. But now, let's move on to the next deleted scene. In the episode, Scaredy Pants. Season 1 of the show was considered to be fairly innocent. That is, until the Scaredy Pants episode. That really scared some of the younger audiences. The episode starts with everyone taking advantage of SpongeBob, who gets easily scared. They nickname him SpongeBob Scaredy Pants.
That's just SpongeBob Scaredy Pants.
As he rushes home and even gets more scared by everything around him. Thus begins his quest to appear scary, but none of his tricks quite work. He then crashes a Halloween party, dressed up as the Flying Dutchman. People laugh at him when he fails, and things hit a breaking point when the real Flying Dutchman arrives. In his final show of anger, the Dutchman removes the costume from SpongeBob and sees him with his brain exposed. This horrifies the ghost, who understandably runs away as fast as he could. And as soon as the rest of the characters see it, they flee the scene too. But if you thought a far off shot wasn't enough, the original episode had planned the camera angles very differently. SpongeBob's costume was meant to be on full display, with close-up shots to capture how truly horrifying he was. But luckily, SpongeBob's production team decided that a far off shot and an ending reassuring the audience that SpongeBob's skin will grow back would fix the issue. But hey, at least SpongeBob got his wish. While SpongeBob willingly shaved off his skin in the episode, Sandy had something worse done to her. In the episode, Someone's in the Kitchen with Sandy, ranked as one of the worst episodes in SpongeBob history. This episode was unsettling to begin with, and yet fans didn't realize that there was a worse version waiting for them this whole time. The episode starts off with Plankton trying to steal a Krabby Patty from Sandy. When that doesn't go according to plan, he follows her into the tree dome. He then watches Sandy take off her astronaut suit, but it doesn't stop there, as she also takes off her fur coat like a suit. Plankton then steals this suit, which he wears to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula. He successfully manages to convince SpongeBob that he is indeed Sandy, and SpongeBob begins teaching him various things around the kitchen. But SpongeBob is not a merciful coach, making Plankton do mundane tasks and waiting to get them perfectly right, all while Sandy is searching for the culprit of the missing fur coat. Just as Plankton got his hands on the formula, Sandy breaks in and makes Plankton surrender. But the original clip was somehow more disturbing than this. In it, Sandy was initially meant to be naked in the episode, and this led to a big plot hole in the episode. But the production team scrapped the idea, and Sandy got back her signature underwear. This wasn't the only deleted scene though, as Sandy had also covered herself up with a construction cone, creating an accident. There was yet another scene where she tried to buy clothes, but the manager kicked her out, saying no clothes, no service. Luckily, in all of these instances, Sandy does end up getting her suit back. But now, let's take a break and look at some deleted scenes from the SpongeBob movies, starting out with some deleted scenes from Sponge on the Run, the third movie of the franchise, and the production crew had a lot of experiments they wanted to conduct on the film. The film was set in motion as a result of one of Plankton's plans. He and Karen decided that SpongeBob was the reason all their plans failed. Meanwhile, in Atlantic City, the selfish ruler, Poseidon, uses up all of the slime from his latest sea snail, which is necessary to maintain his appearance. He orders the obtaining of a new snail, and Plankton kidnaps SpongeBob's pet snail, Gary, so that SpongeBob will no longer interfere with his plans. Once SpongeBob realized that Gary was missing, he swore to bring him back. Plankton was even so kind as to loan SpongeBob his robot for the journey.
Otto is your ticket.
And off went SpongeBob and Patrick on their mission to bring Gary back home. Without SpongeBob cooking Krabby Patties, the Krusty Krab's enraged customers trashed the restaurant, despite Mr. Krabs and Squidward's best efforts to stop them. Otto, Plankton's robot, drives SpongeBob and Patrick to an old western town, where they meet a tumbleweed spirit named Sage. He reveals to SpongeBob and Patrick that they are dreaming, and they must overcome a special mission to continue their search, giving them a challenge coin to grant them bravery. They enter a tavern by the ghostly zombie pirates and decide to free their souls from the evil spirit El Diablo, but Diablo traps the duo. They get out of the situation where Diablo is accidentally disintegrated from them. They even free other pirate souls, as SpongeBob and Patrick were woken by Otto. Now, accompanied by Sage, SpongeBob discovers that Poseidon will enslave him with the rest of his previous snails. When Gary's slime runs out, arriving in Atlantic City, Sage warns the pair to not be distracted by the city's attractions, but they ignore his last warnings. After a fun-filled night, SpongeBob and Patrick discover that they have lost the coin challenge that allowed them to be brave, but they nonetheless enter Poseidon's palace. Both are immediately arrested and imprisoned in a dungeon, where they try to take Gary. Krabs, Plankton, and Sandy all stage a rescue, and they end up becoming friends with the king. A cute story story with a good moral in a fully animated movie. Or that's what Nickelodeon wants you to think. Originally, it was supposed to be a hybrid live-action movie, with King Poseidon being an actual human being. He was also meant to have dark black minions to corner SpongeBob and Patrick, but in this plotline, Poseidon kidnaps Gary to clone him, but Paramount rejected that idea. But it gets even crazier. What if I told you that there was a plot not under the sea, but with cats instead? Before the production of the movie, the team was also toying with the idea of a science fiction approach, and giant cats were the villains. And it didn't stop there. There was another idea that involved the characters visiting a whole different worlds, such as a futuristic one made up of dolphins, but those were scrapped because Steven Hillenburg, the creator of the show, loved the more realistic plots, and so the team did what he would have wanted. There were other scenes directly from the movie. For example, the Camp Coral flashbacks were meant to be in the start of the film, not hiding the blatant advertisement for their recent show, but it was later moved to be further into the movie. That wasn't all, as initially, Gary's droppings could have been seen when SpongeBob was looking for him in his litter box. Overall, it's clear that a lot went into this movie, and it was overall a success. But now, let's talk about the next deleted scenes. In the episode Truth or Square, this one was meant to be the Krusty Krab's 117th birthday, airing as a special episode. But there was one line in a scene that would have changed how we saw SpongeBob before being quietly deleted. The episode starts with Patchy holding a TV extravaganza and waiting for SpongeBob. Once he realizes that SpongeBob is not coming, he gets on his boat and goes to Bikini Bottom Atoll. In an animated part, SpongeBob is getting ready for his usual day as a fry cook, except this time, he's extra excited because it was an anniversary for the Krusty Krab. Krabs make sure the security is tight before doing the event, while Plankton decides that it's the perfect time to strike. Soon after, the Krusty crew went into a freezer to get an ice sculpture that SpongeBob made for the occasion, but as soon as they went inside, the door shut behind them and locked itself. The gang tried to escape through the air ducts, and Plankton joins them. And also, Patchy the pirate gets eaten by a whale. Back in Bikini Bottom, the gang has a lot of flashbacks to everything that has led up to this point. While Plankton tries to overhear the formula, he gets thrown out, and Krabs' wallet is allowed to escape in order to get his money. They try to use a radio transmitter to call Sandy to come rescue them, but this startles Patrick, who destroys the transmitter. This leads to SpongeBob remembering that he once got married to Sandy before being revealed to be a play.
SpongeBob, do you take Sandy as your lawfully wedded wife?
I do.
And Sandy, do you take SpongeBob as your lawfully wedded husband?
And how?
And here's where it gets interesting, because in the original clip, SpongeBob was supposed to say one line. As the priest says that he didn't know it was a play, SpongeBob says,
But it doesn't have to be.
and Sandy then slaps him. This was cut to ease any doubts that SpongeBob liked Sandy romantically, and Nickelodeon never spoke of it again. At the end of the episode, SpongeBob saves the Krusty Krab by singing a song, closing the episode for good. But while this episode spared SpongeBob from a lifetime of marriage, this next one spared him from a torture room. I'm talking about the episode Snowball Effect. This episode was meant to be innocent, just the characters having a snowball fight, but the original clip had one extra detail that would have turned a lot of heads. The episode begins with an iceberg floating over Bikini Bottom, causing it to snow. SpongeBob and Patrick immediately jump on the opportunity to have a snowball fight, and they try to get Squidward to join, but he turns down the offer, choosing instead to watch the fight in hopes that SpongeBob would get injured. But his words cause SpongeBob and Patrick to sign a peace treaty, infuriating Squidward. In order to get the fight to continue, he joins in, but it was clear that it was no joke to Squidward. When the relentless attacks feel too serious to the duo, they quietly sneak back to the pineapple to evade Squidward. Taking the opportunity, Squidward creates a full-blown fort called Fort Squidward. He gets into a lucid state, believing that he was still being attacked by SpongeBob and Patrick. Meanwhile, the duo relaxes in the pineapple as the episode ends. But what a lot of fans don't know is that originally, we were meant to see the inside of Fort Squidward. He had made a fully equipped torture room with a rack and even a guillotine. scene. The scene never made it to production though, as it was considered too violent for the show. But now, let's move on to the next episode with deleted scenes, Sailor Mouth. This episode had a lot of controversy to begin with, as SpongeBob learns to curse, along with Patrick. But once the original recordings were leaked, no one could unhear it. The episode starts with SpongeBob getting ordered to take out the trash, where he finds a swear word written on the dumpster. He and Patrick decide that it was a sentence enhancer, and the next day, they use it everywhere.
Hi, Squidward. How the are ya?
Nice day, isn't it, Squidward?
All of the customers leave to go somewhere more family-oriented, and they finally learn from Squidward that there are 13 bad words, and the one they were using was the 11th one. This causes SpongeBob and Patrick to wipe their tongues and swear that they would never repeat it again. But as expected, this promise would be short-lived. Back at the house, the duo play a game of eels and escalators. When SpongeBob loses, he shouts the bad word. Patrick tries to go to Mr. Krabs and snitch on SpongeBob, but in the chase, he does the deed himself. They both tell on each other, causing Mr. Krabs to punish them by forcing to give the Krusty Krab a new coat of paint. But when Mr. Krabs gets hurt, he says all 13 of the bad words in one shot. This causes the duo, with Krabs following them, to go to Betsy Krabs' house to snitch on her son. Betsy faints when she hears so much cussing, and scolds all of them. The episode ends with Betsy also swearing, but it was just a horn sound, giving them all a good laugh. The important thing in this episode is that every time one of the characters cursed, there was a dolphin squeal to cover up the word, but the voice actor in the original recording actually said these words. In a Giga leak, these uncensored recordings have been fully released. Some fans actually edited the video part to match the audio, giving the full experience. But the next deleted scene on the list is from another SpongeBob movie, which, like in the previous movie, had a lot of changes, and the one we're talking about is Sponge Out of Water from 2015. This movie was a first of its kind, using CGI to animate SpongeBob, but it was initially never meant to use it, and buff SpongeBob was never even a thought. The movie follows another pirate called Burger Beard, who plans to steal the formula, the one thing that Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob have been guarding with their lives for decades. Plankton also makes an attempt to steal it, but just as he gets his hands on the bottle, it disappears. SpongeBob and Plankton escape in a soap bubble, as SpongeBob knows that Plankton is innocent. Bikini Bottom turns into a wasteland without the formula, and SpongeBob swears to bring it back. Time travel is introduced, and the duo meet a magical dolphin, Bubbles, overseeing the galaxy, but they accidentally get him fired when Jupiter and Saturn collide. After escaping that situation, they try to steal the formula from the past, only to realize that it was the fake that Plankton had planned earlier. Sandy suggests a sacrifice to the sandwich gods for Krabby Patties, and SpongeBob volunteers. As the town tries, SpongeBob mentions he smells Krabby Patties, which Mr. Krabs also confirms. The townsfolk follow the scent to the surface, and Bubble returns, expressing his hatred for his job and his gratitude to be fired. He thanks SpongeBob by allowing him and his friends to breathe on land to follow the smell. The team lands on a beach and discovers that the smell leads to Burger Beard's shop, which he had converted to a real food truck. The pirate is revealed to have stolen the formula using the magical book, which then he tries to banish the group to an island full of pelicans. SpongeBob uses that page Sandy had to transform himself and the others into superheroes. They find Burger Beard, who tries to run away, but they catch up to him. The team destroys the book during the ensuing battle, but Burger Beard manages to overpower them. Plankton ends up being the one to save the day. He had become a muscle-bound hero, attacking Burger Beard with SpongeBob's help. They get the formula back and send Burger Beard flying to Bikini Bottom. Using the final page's magic, the gang returns to Bikini Bottom. With the Krabby Patties back, the city returns to normal, and Plankton resumes his usual formula-stealing plans. But what if SpongeBob was never supposed to become a superhero? In retrospect, it feels like it went off track to what the show represents, instead trying to make SpongeBob into a parody of Marvel. well. There is a simple explanation to this though. Mr. Krabs' voice actor, Clancy Brown, once revealed that Paramount heavily restricted the production of the film. Initially, the movie was supposed to be entirely 2D animation, but Paramount wanted CGI sequences. They felt that CGI would be good to market, and this can clearly be seen in all the advertisements played during that time. But that's not all. They also removed almost every scene that involved Mrs. Puff and Mr. Krabs' daughter, Pearl. The executives felt that these characters were not as popular as Sandy, and so to give her more screen time, they cut them off. If that wasn't enough, the original film was also supposed to have a full song that they edited out in the final cut.
Oh, Monday! Thank gosh it's Monday, my number one day.
SpongeBob, in his usual cheery self, finds the silver lining in what's the most dreaded day of the week for many. But this song was cut, and the reason for it was never given. Speaking of deleted scenes, the movie was also supposed to have a callback to one of the show's jokes. It was none other than the Nasty Patty, the ones that poisoned the health inspector in one of the episodes. After the formula is stolen in the movie, SpongeBob should have created them as a result of forgetting what actually to do. In a desperate move, Krabs serves them to the refund-demanding customer. As expected, this did not go well, and the customers puke all over Squidward. But this scene was obviously removed on account of them being too gross. After all of these changes, audiences finally got to see the movie as it is today. But not even the first movie was spared from getting its scenes taken apart, as seen in the original SpongeBob SquarePants movie, the very first movie to start the SpongeBob film series, and perhaps the most beloved one of them all was this one. But despite that, this movie was sorely missing one of its key characters. The movie starts with Mr. Krabs opening a second location of the Krusty Krab, right next to the original. His fry cook, SpongeBob SquarePants, hopes to be promoted to manager of the new restaurant, but Krabs instead selects his co-worker, Squidward, explaining to SpongeBob that he's just a kid who is too immature to handle the position. Depressed, SpongeBob goes to the Goofy Goober ice cream parlor, where he and his best friend Patrick Star indulge themselves with ice cream, and wake up the next morning with a hangover. Krabs' rival, Plankton, initiates Plan Z in an attempt to obtain the Krabby Patty secret formula. He steals King Neptune's crown and sends it to Shell City, and frames Krabs for the crime. Neptune confronts Krabs about the stolen crown, and is convinced of Krabs' guilt. SpongeBob promises Neptune that he will be back with the crown. In order to ensure that SpongeBob keeps his promise, Neptune freezes Krabs and threatens to execute him if SpongeBob does not return in 6 days. SpongeBob and Patrick head for Shell City in the Patty Wagon, a Krabby Patty-shaped car stored underneath the restaurant. After the duo leave Bikini Bottom, Plankton steals the formula from the frozen crabs and uses it to sell Krabby Patties. He distributes free helmets with the Krabby Patties that brainwash customers into doing Plankton's bidding. This lets him take over Bikini Bottom, with Dennis as a hitman for SpongeBob to keep his position. After encountering a trench, Dennis, and a human diver on their path, SpongeBob and Patrick learn to behave like men. They even get a ride from David Hasselhoff back to Bikini Bottom. They reach just in time to save Krabs, but Plankton unleashes his slave army off on them. SpongeBob, embracing the fact that he's accomplished so much despite being a kid, uses the power of rock and roll to play the Goofy Goober rock song, freeing Neptune and the citizens of Bikini Bottom from Plankton's control. As Plankton is arrested by the police, Neptune unfreezes Krabs, who grants SpongeBob his wish to become the manager of Krusty Krab 2. Now, it's easy to see why this movie was so loved by the audiences. At the very start of the movie, we see human pirates, but there was somebody that was missing. Patchy the pirate and Potty the pirate never made their appearance in the movie. According to the showrunners, they felt that the intentionally low production of Patchy scenes in the show conflicted with the quality of the movie, and so they cut him out. He was instead replaced with Captain Bart the pirate, but there were minor changes to the movie too. In the Goofy Goober scene, SpongeBob was supposed to call the people people attending to him as bartenders, but this was later changed to waiter so that it didn't get associated with alcohol consumption. But perhaps the biggest scene change is when the duo escape Shell City. Originally, they were supposed to meet Sandy, and she was an actual squirrel. This disgusts Patrick to the point where he vomits to express it. On top of this, Sandy was also supposed to have squirrel exterminators after her. Makes you wonder why Sandy wants to go back to land so much. Another shocking difference is that SpongeBob and Patrick were supposed to be the human versions of themselves, but it was cut out for not being in line with the film. Speaking of SpongeBob's first movie, let's go back to his first episode, Help Wanted, because there's actually some deleted scenes in this. When SpongeBob finally applies for the job of becoming a fry cook at the Krusty Krab, with some encouragement from Patrick, he tumbles into the restaurant, but his neighbor Squidward is horrified and tries to get Mr. Krabs to reject him. Mr. Krabs takes Squidward's side and gives SpongeBob an impossible task for a very particular spatula.
Go out and fetch me a hydrodynamic spatula with, port and starboard attachments and turbo drive. And don't come back till you get one.
Thinking they got rid of him, the duo try to get on with their day, but they get ambushed by anchovies. Mr. Krabs and Squidward climb onto a pole to get away from the mob of customers. SpongeBob returns, having fulfilled the task, and proceeds to serve every single one of them. This earns him the fry cook job that he prides himself on for decades to come. But not even the theme song was the same in the first making of this episode. SpongeBob SquarePants was initially meant to be called SpongeBoy Ahoy, and with that came this theme song. But intros aren't the only ones to be changed in the show, as the episode Graveyard Shift had an entirely different ending to the episode. Krabs isn't the only one taking advantage of others in this episode, as the original recording was meant to end with someone else, giving it a very different ending. The episode starts with a customer not getting the memo on the Krusty Krab's opening hours, but hearing the word money makes Krabs instantly open the restaurant to be 24/7. Squidward is not happy and finds his joy by playing around with SpongeBob's fears. Realizing that SpongeBob was afraid of the dark, Squidward tells him the story of the hash-slinging slasher.
At this very restaurant, the hash-slinging slasher used to be a fry cook, just like you.
But Squidward seems to never learn his lesson, as karma comes for him once again. 3 a.m. soon arrives, and the restaurant is now completely devoid of customers or any other signs of life, besides SpongeBob and Squidward. Suddenly, the lights begin flickering, though Squidward initially thinks SpongeBob is to blame. After realizing that nobody's touching the light switch, Squidward then blames the faulty electrical wiring, as the restaurant was not built to run 24 hours a day. Soon after, all of Squidward's stories start to come true. The phone rings with no one on the other end. A mysterious bus arrives and drops off a singular customer with a spatula for a hand. Getting scared out of their minds, Squidward and SpongeBob cling to each other. But when the person steps into the light, they realize that it was just a normal person wanting a job at the Krusty Krab. The lights flicker once again, but this time it's revealed to be a vampire named Nosferatu. They casually tease him as if it's a well-known habit to the Krusty Krab and staff alike. Smiling at the trio mischievously, he flicks the lights off once more, cutting to black and ending the episode. But this ending did not feature Floorboard Larry, the lost character in this episode. Initially, Floorboard Larry was meant to receive some mail from SpongeBob, and it was him who was flickering the lights. But the appeal of the character was not seen, causing him to be cut from the final episode. While Floorboard Larry was deleted from the episode, the same was about to happen to Krabs' parents in the episode Clams. Mr. Krabs is known for his obsession with money, and this episode was a highlight as he finally earned his millionth dollar. But the plotline was initially supposed to deal with death. The episode starts with a customer, under SpongeBob's suggestion, ordering coral bits for just $1. Then Mr. Krabs excitedly announces that this particular dollar is his millionth one earned. And after congratulating and thanking SpongeBob and Squidward, he says that they're going on a surprise trip to celebrate. Squidward guesses that they'll be going to special places, such as Fancy Springs, Palmer Island, or Bikini Bottom Folk Village. To Squidward's dismay, however, they go clam fishing in a boat called the SS Cheapskate on a smelly lagoon. While fishing, SpongeBob accidentally hooks the back of Mr. Krabs' pants, which he has taped the millionth dollar to, and rips it off. Once the dollar is thrown into the lagoon, the trio is warned about a giant clam that lives down there. SpongeBob frantically reels the dollar back on the boat, and for a few seconds, Mr. Krabs is happy that the dollar is safe. But nothing could have prepared him for what was going to happen next, as a giant blue-lipped clam suddenly jumps out of the lagoon, grabbed the dollar from Mr. Krabs' claws, and swam away. Krabs cries to Squidward, who agrees to get it back just to make him stop whining. The trio prepares a lookout, equipped with the necessary supplies. After 3 days, the clam is still not returned. SpongeBob and Squidward have grown tired of waiting, so they try to fool Mr. Krabs by giving him an ordinary dollar out of Squidward's wallet. The dollar was all crumpled up, torn slightly, and soaked in the lagoon, and kissed up with coral blue 3 semi-gloss lipstick that SpongeBob used. Mr. Krabs sees through their scheme and states that he will give a sandwich to whoever retrieves the dollar. He goes as far as to toss the other sandwiches and the entire fridge into the lagoon, making the sandwich the only piece of food on board. Squidward and SpongeBob realizes that their boss has gone mad and try to escape, only for Mr. Krabs to catch them and use them as live bait for the clam. The clam finally takes the bait and advances towards the boat with Mr. Krabs' dollar lying on its tongue. Mr. Krabs jumps onto the clam's tongue and grabs the dollar, only for the clam to shut it in its mouth and dive back into the lagoon. SpongeBob and Squidward panic until Mr. Krabs' head pops out of the lagoon. He reveals that he and the clam fought until Mr. Krabs agreed to trade his entire body. The only parts left of him were his head and his left arm to hold the dollar. But 2 characters were added to the episode. In the original run, Krabs' parents were never meant to exist, being depicted as dead instead. But the production team later scrapped this idea, as really young audiences might not have been taught about death, leading them to ask these questions too early. His parents aired with the names Victor and Betsy Krabs. Speaking of death, Squidward's surgery scene in Dying for Pie can hardly be forgotten. In this episode, Squidward thinks that SpongeBob is gonna blow up and spends a lot of time with him in a pretty wholesome way. But that doesn't mean that this episode was all innocent, as one of the scenes had to be edited for being too gross. The episode starts with Squidward's hatred for SpongeBob. He comes into the Krusty Krab only to find out that it's Employee Brotherhood Day, a day on which all employees must exchange gifts that they've made for themselves. For his gift to Squidward, SpongeBob presents him with a sweater made out of his own eyelashes. Squidward rejects it, which makes SpongeBob cry, eventually leading to this scene.
Is this any better, Squidward? I made this one with my tears.
Squidward, wishing he could simply buy a gift instead of spending time making one, finds a group of pirates outside with a sack of pies. The pirates claim that these pies were bombs, but Squidward does not care and buys it. He then presents his supposedly homemade pie to Mr. Krabs, who gives it a taste test. He breaks off a tiny bit of the crust and goes to get milk. Tripping on his way, the crumb of pie explodes on contact and wrecks the back of the Krusty Krab, blasting Squidward and Mr. Krabs in the process. While Mr. Krabs believes it to be a purposeful attempt on his life, Squidward confesses that he bought the pie, ignorant of its content. Back in Mr. Krabs' office, SpongeBob discovers the pie that Squidward had bought for him. Not noticing the huge hole, they rush back, only to find that SpongeBob apparently ate the pie. Mr. Krabs is disgusted at Squidward for his act, and accuses him of killing SpongeBob after all the nice things that SpongeBob has done for him. Having seen the situation play out 11 times prior, he further explains that the pie will explode upon reaching SpongeBob's lower intestine. He then predicts that SpongeBob only has until sunset to live before the bomb hits the explosion point, and says that he should enjoy his final hours. Being truly remorseful for his actions, Squidward decides to come up with a plan to make SpongeBob's remaining hours the most fun he's ever had. dad. So he asks him what he wants to do the most. SpongeBob presents him with an extensive list of exactly that. He calls it his friendship list. This presents them with the exact bucket list that SpongeBob had. To make up for what he did, Squidward reenacts every single one of them, including having his chest open to let SpongeBob poke at his heart. The final activity SpongeBob planned is watching the sunset with Squidward. Remembering Mr. Krabs' warning about SpongeBob's death, Squidward nervously agrees to participate. He then builds a brick wall between them so that he won't see the explosion during the sunset. But as it turns out, SpongeBob had been saving the pie to share together and accidentally triggers the bomb. This explodes the entirety of Bikini Bottom in a nuclear explosion. So much for trying to censor firearms in SpongeBob. As if this episode didn't already deal with explosions, the scene where SpongeBob opens Squidward's chest was supposedly supposed to play out differently. Originally, SpongeBob was supposed to say, "Who's the doctor here? Me or you?" The last part is important, as when his blood ruptures from Squidward's heart, SpongeBob plugs it up nervously with his hand. But this seemed to encourage the kids to try this at home, and so the edited version aired in the final cut. Speaking of doing questionable things for fun, this episode took fun to a whole other level, with the episode literally being called fun. The episode begins with business as usual at the Krusty Krab, until suddenly an alarm begins to blare, signaling an attempt by Plankton to steal a Krabby Patty. Plankton, Patty in tow, escapes outside by making a huge hole in the door with a laser. SpongeBob chases after him, and after a long chase across Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob finally recovers the Krabby Patty and is congratulated by the townsfolk. While Plankton walks home downcast, SpongeBob, feeling sorry for Plankton, decides to befriend him. SpongeBob invites Plankton to go jellyfishing with him. Realizing that he can take advantage of SpongeBob, Plankton plays along. With encouragement from his wife Karen, at Jellyfish Fields, Plankton remains fixated on evil and destruction, while SpongeBob tries to explain fun to him by singing a song.
F is for friends who do stuff together. U is for you and me.
Plankton then seems to forget about stealing the formula and begins to develop a genuine sense of friendship. When Mr. Krabs sees this, he refuses to believe that Plankton has changed and sets up a trap for him the next day. He attempts to tempt Plankton with a Krabby Patty, but Plankton sits motionlessly with the patty in front of him. After SpongeBob and Plankton leave to go to the movies, Mr. Krabs begins to suspect that Plankton has gone straight and nice, until he realizes that he actually did take the patty. In an attempt to prove Mr. Krabs wrong, SpongeBob reaches into Plankton's pockets, only to find a Krabby Patty. Plankton attempts to explain that he realizes now that he only ever wanted friendship, before admitting to everything and running off with the patty through the movie screen, tearing it in half in the process. He is eventually caught, as there was only a concrete wall behind the screen as the episode closes. But in the original episode, there were a few dialogues that changed the nature of the story. In the jellyfishing scene, Plankton initially pointed his gun and said the line,
What happens after we
Shoot them.
SpongeBob is clearly disturbed as he says that. The reason for deleting this scene is obvious enough. SpongeBob's team are well aware that references to violence are not received well in the show. While this was understandable, the next one deleted is a unique theme song. In the episode, Whatever Happened to SpongeBob? The episode starts with SpongeBob walking up and greeting the mailman, but this simple gesture proves to be dangerous, as a truck runs him over. This alters SpongeBob's personality, causing him to be more clumsy. After a series of accidents around his friends, he is cast out after being called Idiot Boy. This causes him to feel guilty and prepare to leave Bikini Bottom for good. This journey is hard on him, and in one instance, he hits his head, causing amnesia. His friends are back at home to organize a whole search plan for the sponge. Meanwhile, SpongeBob wanders into New Kelp City, where he attempts to get a job. However, each time he gets a job, SpongeBob uses his bubble blowing skills to get him, resulting in him being fired. Back in Bikini Bottom, Sandy shows her friends her new invention that can track SpongeBob, the Sponge Tracker. Squidward, not wanting SpongeBob to come back, purposefully destroys the device with a hammer, claiming he dropped it. Krabs, in a desperate move, buys Squidward's loyalty by offering him a jeweled Furby egg as a retirement gift, which would complete his collection. In Kelp City, things are taking a different turn, as SpongeBob's bubble blowing skills trapped a local gang gang, earning him the mayor position. His friends finally find him, but SpongeBob now calls himself Cheesehead Brown Pants. They also realize that he has amnesia and doesn't remember any of them. They bring SpongeBob back to Bikini Bottom, where SpongeBob is surprised at his previous life. His memory is finally restored when the Forbet egg falls on his head. The episode ends with SpongeBob realizing he's no longer welcome at Kelp City. He decides to stay in Bikini Bottom forever, much to Squidward's dismay. To keep up with the theme of the plotline, the episode initially had a very different theme song. Instead of the iconic one, it was called Who Bob What Pants, and it went like this. But it's assumed that this was removed for fear that it would mess with the brand, and so it never made the final cut. Well, weird things are expected out of SpongeBob. When Mr. Krabs tried to intimidate him, it led to the biggest controversy in SpongeBob history. In the episode Midlife Crustacean, the episode starts with Mr. Krabs feeling old as he struggles to get out of his hammock bed. He goes into his kitchen to find that Pearl has made him breakfast, and to make matters worse, she forces a huge pill down his throat. It continues to follow him everywhere he goes. Getting fed up, Krabs decides to join SpongeBob and Patrick in their antics to get back his youth. He even does the cool guy handshake and gets ready for a big night out together. At 8:01 p.m., SpongeBob and Patrick arrive at Mr. Krabs' house as a part of their fashionably late promise. Ready for the big night out, the scene then changes to them doing many other bizarre activities in various settings, such as at this highway, laundromat, dentist, roof redoing, and a game of Dungeons and Dragons in Old England, and the library, none of which have yet succeeded in remotely amusing Krabs. Krabs gets visibly more and more frustrated. At his breaking point, he angrily decides to cancel the night and go home, but Patrick tries to change his mind by saying that he will miss out on the pantry raid. This was an occurrence in which the trio will be invading a woman's house to steal her underpants. This changes Krabs' mind, and he agrees to go along. SpongeBob, Patrick, and Mr. Krabs arrive at a house and are successful in obtaining an unspecified woman's underwear. However, they are caught red-handed when the woman turns on the light and catches the boys in the middle of the act, revealing her to be Mr. Krabs' mother. As a result, Mr. Krabs is grounded for the remainder of the night and sent to his room. SpongeBob apologizes for what happened, but Mr. Krabs forgives him, as being in his old bedroom made him feel younger, finally getting his wish. It's easy to see why this episode got banned, and the idea of the three boys breaking into a woman's house to steal her underwear is hardly what SpongeBob is trying to teach. Fortunately for everyone, Nickelodeon buried this episode as best as they could. Now, that was every deleted scene in SpongeBob. If you liked this video, be sure to smash the subscribe button down below for more. SpongeBob SquarePants has been on the air for over 25 jellyfishing years, and with all this time, the creators are bound to make at least a few changes to the animation style here and there, whether it be adding a few holes to SpongeBob, or even a complete change to the entire art style. So today, I wanted to go over every time SpongeBob changes its animation style, from the pilot all the way to 3D animated SpongeBob. But before we get to that, let's go from the earliest versions of SpongeBob, and then work our way back to some of the freaky ones. In the beginning, it used the cell art style, a style where artists drew and painted on transparent sheets and layered them over the backgrounds. Although, despite what many people thought, this wasn't the traditional way cell styles were made. SpongeBob was actually made using digital apps such as Toons, back then called US Animation, to replicate the cell style by making the colors slightly softer and duller, making them look like someone took crayons and sketched out a sponge with a face. They did this so the animation process could be easier and quicker, because instead of drawing on paper, then transferring the transparent sheets and hand painting them, they could just draw it and let the software replicate it for them. It was also 1999, aka ancient Rome, and studios like Disney were moving out of the traditional cell style, making it overall outdated. But this next change is straight up disgusting, vile, and weird. weird. You'll be watching a normal SpongeBob scene, and then out of nowhere, bam, you'll get hit with one of these absolutely vile close-up shots. Like, every single hair, sweat drop is suddenly in your sight of view. It can happen while you're eating too, and literally, SpongeBob has gotten complaints about this in the past. They usually happen when something intense is going on, like when SpongeBob gets a splinter, or when he's crying so hard that his face warps. And the close-up just makes it look so much worse than it has to. The detail is way too much on purpose, and it's like they straight up want you to go, what am I even looking at right now? What's cool is that a lot of these were actually hand-painted, and not drawn like the rest of the episode. Some of them look like legit oil paintings, meaning the artist have to sit there and draw every single frame of SpongeBob's crust and oils. Yeah, I really can't blame people for complaining to the creators now, though it's most likely done to get people talking about the show. You know, sometimes it's easy to forget that this was all hand-painted. I was never gonna sleep anyway. But then, SpongeBob released a video game on Nickelodeon's website, and it was something completely different from what people were used to seeing. About 99% of you are probably too young to have even played it, but let me explain. This was not the bright, detailed SpongeBob from the show. Instead, he looked incredibly low detail, almost like something you would expect from a computer game made in 1990. Everything had its pixelated, blocky look to it, yet somehow you could instantly tell it was SpongeBob, despite how simple it looked. The art style actually matched the resolution, and the style of the early show surprisingly well for its time. The gameplay itself, though, was pretty basic, but in a charming way. What's crazy is that the game is actually still available to play today, if you search for it online on sites like itch.io. People love going back to play these games, not just for nostalgia, but because of how unique SpongeBob looked in them. It's almost hard to imagine if SpongeBob actually looked like this in the show. Chances are, a lot of people wouldn't have been as hooked, but in the form of a quick, simple, online game, it worked perfectly. Outdated or not, fans remember it, and it remains one of those weird little pieces of SpongeBob history. Speaking of outdated, a character that literally looked like SpongeBob from 1940, Doodle Bob, was introduced. Doodle Bob was one of the most popular variants of SpongeBob, being turned into memes, and even being remade 18 years later in season 12. Aside from that, the Frankendoodle episode was actually a pretty genius idea. But now, let's look into the first major change. Around season 4, the animation style changed a lot. Since they took a break and worked on the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, obviously they had to come back absolutely cooking. When they released their first episode of season 4, it was obvious that this art style made the characters a lot glossier. Some fans even described some of the characters in the scenes as being rubbery or bouncy. This occurred because starting in season 4, SpongeBob switched fully to digital art. No more digital cell art. They drew everything using digital paintbrushes. Although many people thought this was going to change everything in the show for the better, it wasn't necessarily as great of a change as a lot of people say. The glossiness was actually just the saturation bleeding into people's eyes, and the bounciness was just a lean towards their way of being funny. Then after that, in 2007, SpongeBob went through another small change that polished up the characters even more and made things look even more fresh. The lighting was improved, giving certain scenes a natural look, and the underwater animations felt a tad bit smoother, and the backgrounds now had better gradients that made them look more vibrant and detailed. It wasn't a massive overhaul, but it was enough to give the show slightly more of a modern feel. This update was mostly worked on in the background, so it's kind of the thing that you might not have noticed unless you compared older episodes side by side with the newer one. Some fans picked up on it right away, pointing out that the colors had certain effects, like light rays underwater looked more polished. It was subtle, but it gave the show a small visual boost without changing the core style that people adored. In the grand scheme of things, it wasn't a groundbreaking change, but it did its job well. The brighter colors and improved gradients kept the show from looking outdated as animation advanced. It was simply one of those quiet changes that helped SpongeBob stay visually appealing while keeping the same feeling that it had since the very beginning. At the end of the day, it just modernized animation and kept it fresh looking, which you will see later in this video would backlash a lot. But nothing could top this next change. Even though it only appeared for 2 episodes, it was on a completely completely different level compared to anything they've ever done before. The crazy part is that it took the crew almost an entire year to make each one. A whole year just for one episode. And honestly, every second of work paid off, because It's a SpongeBob Christmas ended up being some of the most beloved episodes in the eyes of so many fans. People might rip the new SpongeBob seasons, but they can't deny that this was still absolutely spectacular. I remember wanting to watch this exact special every Christmas. Something about the animation just made it the best. And honestly, I think they can do some of this animation for certain episodes. That would be cool. And the wildest part is that the entire thing was made the old-fashioned way. No shortcuts, and no relying on the faster, more modern techniques that other companies were leaning on. Every shot was crafted with that hands-on, frame-by-frame approach that you rarely see anymore. It gave the whole thing this unique charm and authenticity that just hits different, and that's why people still talk about it years later. But while they used an older way to animate these episodes, that doesn't mean that they used an old way to record it, because as HD got introduced to the world, everything changed in animation. We got better pixels and brighter colors, and this led to better shows overall. So SpongeBob got with the times and decided to switch to HD, and I can't blame them. I wouldn't want to keep showing people a sponge in 360p and say that I graded that. Come on, season 9 episode 1 was the first of its kind, and it was the first ever episode to be fully in 1080p with a 16:9 aspect ratio. The episode overall had better visuals and brighter colors. This made everything about the show even better for both the viewers and the animators. The resolution made it more visually pleasing for the viewer, but also easier for the animators to add motion blur and other effects. Some fans loved it, and some fans hated it, and some described it as disturbing. After all, it was their first time seeing a normal SpongeBob episode in 1080p. It's like putting glasses on for the first time. Although some episodes after that were aired in 720p or 360p in a 1:1 aspect ratio, it wasn't the last 1080p episode, because as you'll see later in this video, things are about to get a whole lot crazier. After that, SpongeBob SquarePants had a major change in 2015. After the SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water, the show started getting a more cartoonish and exaggerated animation style. This made it look more squishy and stretchy than before, giving it a more cartoonish vibe, and making it more appealing and interesting. But around the same time, things took a bit of a strange turn. SpongeBob SquarePants just started season 9 with its first episode, and suddenly people were pointing out that something felt different, and it wasn't the big HD upgrade that we talked about earlier. Some swore the characters were blinking more often, others thought proportions looked a little off, and a few even said everything seemed kind of jiggly. Yeah, I know, it sounds absolutely vile, but that's what they said, not me. Still, once you get past the weird observations and finally grow up, these actual changes were pretty neat. They leaned into a more exaggerated and cartoonish style, which gave the animation a bit more energy and personality. It wasn't creepy or unsettling, just a lot more active. Faces stretched out a little further when characters reacted, movements felt looser, and the whole thing had a nice bounce to it that gave the scenes a lot more action. And it only gets crazier when SpongeBob makes such a small change that only affects SpongeBob's pores. Pretty much, starting in around season 12, they did this subtle texture boost, which made certain shots look a little bit cleaner. What's interesting is how this was all achieved with layered brushes, which sounds super technical for something that ends up being so small, but it just goes to show how much effort gets put into even the tiniest details in animation. It's obvious they care enough to tweak and improve things when longtime viewers won't catch it. And sure, maybe it's not groundbreaking, but it adds up. But this next change is straight up diabolical. You see, the people behind SpongeBob had supposedly been cooking behind the scenes to make a huge overhaul for the upcoming movie, but instead of making a good change, they literally decided to change the entire animation style by going from a nostalgic 2D drawn style that they've kept for over 2 decades to going to this, and literally everyone hated it. And no, I'm not talking about Sponge Out of Water. I'm talking about the horribly animated CGI 3D animated SpongeBob from Sponge on the Run. I mean, just imagine someone who watches SpongeBob every day back in 2010, gets into a coma, and then wakes up to see this. That would be crazy. This 3D version of SpongeBob looks really different compared to his normal style. His body has this really smooth texture, which makes him have no charm at all, making his skin looked like a literal rubber duck that you'd give to a toddler. This version of SpongeBob was just focused on being as corporate as possible. In 2D, his expressions can go crazy, but in 3D, it just falls flat. Bikini Bottom in 3D is super detailed, but it feels like it has no personality whatsoever. The show's style always had this energy where the animation looked so undetailed that it made it 10 times more fun to watch, but this one feels way more forced, like it's trying way too hard to be absolutely pixel perfect. A lot of the humor in SpongeBob comes from how weird the characters look, and in this style, that just does not happen the way we're used to. It's not the worst thing ever, but it really does not have the same personality that people loved about SpongeBob. With all these changes, obviously, SpongeBob will never be seen the same again. Some people were starting to kind of give up on SpongeBob. It wasn't really a cartoon anymore. It was kind of just a bland corporation. Instead of trying to make kids laugh, it was just SpongeBob. There was nothing special about the show anymore, just another cartoon. But somehow, in some way, they managed to prove us wrong. SpongeBob SquarePants decided to hit the rewind button. So around seasons 14 and 15, SpongeBob SquarePants did something about it. They ever so slightly went back to their old style. Not a full-on throwback to season 5, but definitely some clear nods to the early 2010 style that a lot of fans really loved. It was like the show was taking a deep breath after years of being way too modernized, and trying to find a balance again. One of the most drastic things you'll notice is how the lines around the characters got thicker. It's like they wanted everything to feel more hand-drawn, like the Cell style we talked about earlier. Honestly, it made the whole thing feel a lot more personal and like it had soul, less like it was made by a random digital app. The characters also stopped bouncing and stretching so much, and the effects were toned way down. Now, all the characters move way more natural, like they're actually living underwater, living in Bikini Bottom. Their facial expressions also changed a bit. Instead of constantly changing every frame into some weird face, the characters would hold on to an expression for longer. It gave you, as the viewer, some time to actually breathe and take in the mushy pores on SpongeBob's face. Ew. Anyways, the overall tone of the show got completely slowed down a bit. It wasn't this non-stop corporation trying to get viral anymore. The new style felt like a break from all that. Like the show was remembering why it was so great in the first place. Fun characters, simple jokes, and a Bikini Bottom that actually felt real for once. Even though they were still using digital animation, it's not like it was much different from the old style. And this wasn't just about how the characters looked. It changed the whole feel of the show. Bikini Bottom stopped feeling like some crazy meme whirlwind and got some of its heart back. The characters felt more real again, and the stories had a better flow. Even after all these years, SpongeBob showed it could still surprise us, not by going bigger or being louder, but by remembering what made it awesome to begin with. We got what we wanted, old SpongeBob, and it all goes full circle, kind of. From characters' voice actors unfortunately dying, to being written out of the show, there are over 10 characters who have completely stopped appearing in SpongeBob. And today, we're gonna go over what happened to all of them, starting with Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, and they have a super sad story for why they stopped appearing, with the voice actors that played them dying in real life. But to get some context, let's look at the last episode they appeared in 2012, and this episode was called Super Evil Aquatic Villain Team Up Is Go, which is a crazy title. This episode is a memorable SpongeBob episode that brings us back to some of the show's most iconic characters for one final adventure. It begins with Plankton once again trying to steal the Krabby Patty's secret formula. This time, instead of going at it alone, he brings in a partner to help him carry out the plan, and that partner is Man Ray, a powerful supervillain and longtime rival of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. Plankton convinces Man Ray that he can rule the fast food world by defeating the Krusty Krab and stealing the secret formula.
Then together we will steal the formula, crush Mr. Krabs, and rule the world!
At first, everything seems to be going their way. Man Ray brings the muscle, Plankton brings the brains, and together they look unstoppable. But things quickly spiral out of control. As soon as Man Ray tastes a Krabby Patty, he becomes completely addicted. He falls in love with the food and completely forgets about the mission. Instead of helping Plankton, he eats nonstop until he's too bloated to move. Plankton grows more and more frustrated as their plan falls apart. His evil scheme turns into a total failure, and he is stuck trying to manage a partner who only cares about burgers. SpongeBob sees what is happening and realizes he can't stop it on his own, so he turns to the only heroes he's ever had in Bikini Bottom to keep the villains in check: Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. The problem is that they're retired. They live in a retirement home and have stepped away from hero work, so SpongeBob tries everything to get their attention. He sneaks into their retirement home, disguises himself, and begs for help. No matter what he does, the two heroes refuse to return to action. Just when it seems like all hope is gone, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy then arrive. They march into the Krusty Krab and take down Man Ray in seconds. Plankton then is left with a giant food bill, and the chaos is finally over. SpongeBob is thrilled, and the heroes head back into retirement like nothing ever happened. What makes this episode so important is the fact that it marks the final appearance of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy with newly recorded voice lines. This is the last time they appeared as full characters with a role in the plot. Not long after this episode, the actors behind them passed away. Ernest Borgnine, the voice of Mermaid Man, died in 2012, and Tim Conaway, who voiced Barnacle Boy, passed away in 2019. Their deaths meant the characters could not return in the same way. Rather than recast them, the creators chose to retire the characters completely. It was a respectful choice that honored both the voice actors and the roles they've played for so many years. There is one more episode where Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy show up. It's called Pat-Man, and it aired in season 9. In that episode, Patrick pretends to be a superhero.
I am Patrick Man!
And the two legendary characters briefly appear. However, their voices are not newly recorded. The lines used are pulled from older episodes. The appearance is small and is meant as a tribute rather than a return to action. That's why super evil aquatic villains Team Up and Go stands out as their true final episode. After this, they were never involved in another plot. In later episodes, they sometimes appear in the background. They might show up as toys, posters, or decorations, but they never speak again. The show made the decision to leave the characters alone and let their legacy stay untouched. Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy had their final moment, and after that, they slowly disappeared, never having a new speaking role in the show again. People still remembered them, but sadly, everyone cannot live forever. And they aren't the only ones. The next character who used to be important, but over time were left behind, is Man Ray. Man Ray used to be Bikini Bottom's most dangerous enemy. He made his first appearance in the episode Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 3, where he is frozen inside the Mermalayer and kept as a trophy, but SpongeBob and Patrick accidentally unfroze him. Right away, he tried to escape and return to his evil ways, but instead of fighting superheroes, he was stuck being rehabilitated by SpongeBob and Patrick. They tried to teach him how to be a good person. This gave us the famous wallet scene, where Man Ray keeps getting shocked by a tickle bill every time he refuses to take the wallet he says isn't his.
You dim bulb, take back your wallet or I'll rip your arms off!
The episode showed how SpongeBob's weirdness could even defeat the most serious villain. He returned in Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 5. This time, he teamed up with Dirty Bubble to form an evil group, but SpongeBob and the Bikini Bottom created their own superhero team and stopped them in the dumbest way possible. Man Ray lost again, and his final appearance was in Super Evil Aquatic Villains Team Up as Go. This time, he worked with Plankton to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula, but he got distracted and ate too many patties so he couldn't move. That was the last time he had a real role, and after that, he's kind of faded away. When Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy were retired from the show, Man Ray disappeared too. His story only made sense when they were around. Without them, he had no real purpose. As expected as Man Ray's disappearance was, there is one character who was completely swept under the rug. Flats the Flounder. Flats was different from your usual SpongeBob character. In the show, he only had one goal: kicking SpongeBob's butt. He was introduced in season 3 in the episode called The Bully, where SpongeBob walks into boating school and meets a new student. Flats seemed friendly at first, but then out of nowhere, he says he's gonna kick SpongeBob's butt for no reason. That's the entire plot. SpongeBob spends the whole episode trying to avoid getting his butt kicked. It turns into one long long chase. SpongeBob hides and panics, and even tries asking Patrick for help. But nothing works. Flats keeps showing up everywhere. At home, at work, and even inside of SpongeBob's dreams. Flats finally punches SpongeBob over and over. But because SpongeBob is a sponge, it does nothing. Flats gets tired and falls over. And SpongeBob wins by doing absolutely nothing. That was Flats' one big episode. And after that, he quietly disappeared. He made a few silent background cameos in later seasons, but never got another speaking role. Maybe the writers felt his story was finished. He had one joke and one job, but he did it well, and now most fans forget he ever existed. But whatever happened to Grandma SquarePants? Grandma SquarePants was one of those characters who felt important at first, but slowly disappeared over time. She is SpongeBob's loving and sweet grandmother. She lives in a cozy little house and always treats SpongeBob like a child. Cookies, milk, kisses on the forehead. To her, he is still her baby boy. She first appears in the episode Grandma's Kisses from season 2. In that episode, SpongeBob is excited to visit her, but when Squidward and the other adults at the Krusty Krab laugh at him for having a kiss on his forehead, SpongeBob gets embarrassed, so he tries to act grown up, but deep down, the entire time he misses the attention. Pet Sitter Pat from season 8 was her last speaking appearance before retirement. She shows up in a flashback or a background scene.
Why go home when I have Grandma's down-home folk remedies right here?
And she speaks once or twice, but she never got another major role until recently, in the episode Don't Make Me Laugh from season 14, where Grandma SquarePants came out of retirement just to have one more role. But my theory for why she took such a long break from the show is because SpongeBob stopped needing that side in his life, and as the show got louder and faster, there wasn't much space for quiet family moments. Grandma SquarePants became one of the many characters who got left behind. It's really sad to see a character let go, especially someone this sweet, but that's just how the show works. But another character who was seemingly let go is Patchy the Pirate and Potty the Pirate. Patchy the Pirate was more than just a character. He was SpongeBob's biggest fan.
I can't believe it! More SpongeBob!
He lived in a small house in KO, California. His house was full of SpongeBob toys, posters, drawings, and random pirate stuff. He lived in the real world and talked right to the viewers watching the show. With him was Potty the Pirate. Potty was a talking puppet who flew around and always made fun of Patchy. Patchy was happy and full of energy, and Potty was just rude and wild. Like I'm talking, they fought in every scene, but they always stayed together. Their first appearance was in the season 2 Christmas special. Patchy hosted the special from in his home and introduced the first Christmas in Bikini Bottom. He tried to throw a party while Potty kept making a mess. It was silly and fun. That episode helped fans feel like they were a part of something bigger. It made SpongeBob feel like more than a cartoon after that, because Patchy and Potty showed up for a lot more episodes. They were in The Sponge Who Could Fly, Hardy Pooper Pants, Atlantis SquarePants, and Truth or Square. When the show had a special, they were usually a part of it, but over time, they started showing up less and less. Patchy's stories were cut shorter, Potty stopped talking as much, and the wild energy just wasn't the same. One possible reason for this is that Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob, also played Patchy. As the show kept growing, filming Patchy scenes became harder. The show also changed styles. Older episodes were slower and weirder. Newer ones moved faster and left less room for live action parts. Their last real appearance was in SpongeBob's Big Birthday Blowout. Patchy showed up to celebrate the 20th anniversary in 2021. He talked to fans, went on a fun journey, and helped bring back that classic SpongeBob feeling. Potty was there too, still flying around and causing problems. Now, they don't appear much anymore, but you won't see them in spin-offs or new seasons. Many younger fans don't even know who they are. They've become forgotten parts of the show, but fans who have watched the earlier seasons still remember them. Patchy and Potty made the show feel personal, and most of all, they made every special feel important. But next, whatever happened to the French narrator? The French narrator has been with SpongeBob since the very beginning. He never shows his face, but is the voice of some of the most familiar sounds in the show.
A few minutes later.
And you know exactly who he is. He usually starts the episodes with short lines like,
Ah, the sea. So fascinating.
Or
here we find SpongeBob once again stalking the wild jellyfish.
He pops in to set the scene, explains what's happening, or skips ahead in time.
Later.
He doesn't interrupt the story, he adds to it, like a quiet guide walking us through the underwater world. The French narrator is voiced by Tom Kenny, the same person who voices SpongeBob and Patchy the Pirate. His voice is meant to sound like a real-life ocean explorer. That's why he speaks with a strong French accent. He makes the show feel like a silly nature documentary. These quick time cards that he said started to become a part of SpongeBob's comedy style. Other shows copied them, fans still repeat them, and they've become a part of meme culture. Even though he's so important, the French narrator never got a full story. He's never had his own episode, although he really doesn't need one, and his job is to support the show, not star in it. Over time, his voice started showing up less. Some newer episodes skip the narration or use different time cards. Because of that, the French narrator slowly faded back into the background. His last known appearance was in the 2023 special, The Title Zone, where he showed up in live-action segments and helped guide the multi-universe story. Since then, nothing. No time cards, no narration, no little comments, just silence in Bikini Bottom. That's why, even if fans still recognize the voice, the French narrator still counts as a forgotten character. He was never gone in name, but the show stopped using him in the way they used to. And without him guiding us through Bikini Bottom, something always feels a little bit off. And even if people don't talk about him much now, his voice helped shape SpongeBob into what it became. And he was the quiet heart of the show. But someone's voice wasn't so quiet, and yet still managed to disappear. The chocolate lady only appeared in one episode, but made a big impact. She was strange, loud, and unforgettable. Most fans don't even know her name, but they remember her voice. All she did was say one word over and over again. She showed up in the season 3 episode Chocolate with Nuts. In that episode, SpongeBob and Patrick decide to sell chocolate bars in order to get rich.
Chocolate bar?
That's a great idea, Pat. We'll be traveling chocolate bar salesmen.
They go door to door convincing people to buy them. However, when they knock on her door, she opens it and starts screaming. Her eyes go wide and she yells the word
Chocolate!
over and over. She never says why she loves chocolate so much. She just screams and runs after them. That whole scene became one of the most famous parts of the entire show, and the chocolate lady never appeared again. She's a great example of how SpongeBob could make even the smallest characters stick, and all it took was one crazy scream and she became a legend in the fandom. But last but not least, there's a character so forgotten, yet he's had a ton of major roles in the show. King Neptune was once one of the most powerful characters in SpongeBob. He ruled the sea with magic, lightning, and a booming voice. He was supposed to be the god of the ocean, the one that everyone feared and respected, but now he's barely remembered. He first appeared in the season 1 episode, Neptune's Spatula. In that, SpongeBob pulls a golden spatula from a grease bucket at the Fry Cook Museum. The crowd thinks that means that he's the chosen one, the new royal fry cook. King Neptune shows up angry and proud. He refuses to believe a small fry cook like SpongeBob could ever take his place, so Neptune challenges SpongeBob to a cook-off. He makes hundreds of burgers with magic and speed, and in the same time, SpongeBob only makes one, with love and care. In the end, SpongeBob's single patty is better than all of his. Neptune loses and gets humbled. It's a funny and surprising way to introduce a big godlike character. Later, Neptune came back in the first SpongeBob movie. This time, he looked totally different. In the movie, he was bald and wore a green robe. He had a short temper and zapped everyone who annoyed him. He portrayed a big role in the story, sending SpongeBob and Patrick on their mission to get his stolen crown. His daughter Mindy also helped him along the way. Even though he was important in the movie, his design confused fans. He didn't look or act the same as before. Some people thought he was a different character, even though they shared the same name. In later interviews, the creator said the movie version was meant to be be a new version or a reimagination, not the exact same Neptune from the show. After the movie, King Neptune barely appeared again. He showed up in small cameos though, like background paintings and statues. His character became more of a symbol than a real part of the story. One reason he was forgotten is because the creators really just couldn't fit him into the show. The show focused more on simple stories, neighborhood problems, or issues with the Krusty Krab. A powerful god character really didn't have a place in the average episode. Another reason though is that he kept changing. His voice, design, and personality were different almost every time. That made it hard for fans to connect with him. He never had a clear role or story arc that stuck around. These days, King Neptune barely shows up. Aside from the occasional cameo, he's no longer a part of the main cast or important to the stories. Most new fans didn't even realize he used to be a big deal. He was once a major part of the SpongeBob universe, a ruler with magic power, but over time, he turned into a background character with no real place in the show. Still, the few times he did appear gave us some great moments. The cook-off with SpongeBob, the Stolen Crown adventure, and his loud, dramatic entrances. He might not be completely gone, but in a show that once gave him center stage, Neptune's glory days are definitely behind him. Squidward and the Krusty Krab go together like bread and butter, but not in a way that feels satisfying. In fact, more like stale bread and old butter. Everyone knows that Squidward absolutely hates his job. Day after day, he sits behind the dirty cash register with an absolutely vile look on his face, wishing he were anywhere else in the world. And honestly, who can blame him? I mean, he makes next to nothing, receives zero respect from his boss, and spends his time dealing with constant annoyances from SpongeBob. But despite all this, Squidward still shows up, punches in, and does his part. In fact, he works harder than most employees would in a situation. Harder than anyone except SpongeBob. But the big question remains, why doesn't Squidward just quit? After all, if he hates his job this much, why doesn't he just hang up the hat, walk out the door, and never look back? To help understand why Squidward can't truly escape his job, we're gonna look at all of the times he ever quit to see what motivated it. And as we progress through the video, it's going to get exponentially more clear why he can't quit his job. One of the clearest examples comes from the episode Big Pink Loser. In it, Squidward finally does what so many fans think he should have done years ago. He hands over his hat to Patrick, who had just been hired at the Krusty Krab, and walks right out the door. What's surprising here is Squidward's reaction. For once, he seems genuinely happy to be free out of the register, free of SpongeBob's endless yap sessions, and free of Mr. Krabs' greedy demands. For a moment, he looks like he's genuinely relieved, ready to move on from the grind that's defined his life so much.
Squidward, guess who just got a job?
Guess who just quit?
Do I get my award yet?
You have to work for it, remember?
Tartar sauce.
But later on in the episode, we see Squidward rejoin the Krusty Krab almost immediately after SpongeBob and Patrick walk out of the restaurant. And when I say immediately, I mean it. He just went right back in the moment they step out the door. And he's already back behind the cash register like nothing ever happened. What makes it even more confusing is that just before they left, we see him holding and reading a newspaper, which could suggest that he was at least thinking about other job opportunities. It's like, for a second, he was considering leaving, but then gave up and went right back. He also says it's quote-unquote safe to go back inside once SpongeBob and Patrick finally leave, which shows that his decision to walk out wasn't really about quitting the job itself, but more about avoiding them. Basically, he only quit because Patrick was there, not because of the Krusty Krab or Mr. Krabs. Another time that Squidward actually quits his job is in the episode Bossy Boots, where Pearl takes him over to the Krusty Krab and makes a lot of changes that Squidward just can't deal with. The girly look of the restaurant, along with the uniforms, just drive him absolutely crazy, though he ends up quitting right there and then. The part we never get an answer for is where we actually see him get rehired during the episode. It just skips over that part entirely, but since Pearl eventually gets fired, it's safe to assume that Squidward probably returned soon after. We also see Squidward quit visit in the episode Krusty Towers, where Mr. Krabs turns the Krusty Krab into a hotel. Squidward decides to quit his job so that he can check in as a guest and get treated the way he thinks he deserves for once, making this one of the only times where he actually quits with a clear plan in mind. Once again though, the episode never actually shows him getting rehired. It just leaves that part out. But since the Krusty Towers eventually goes back to being the Krusty Krab, he most likely got rehired. We also see Squidward quit his job in the episode The Play's the Thing, where he truly believes that this is his final chance to become famous. For a moment, he thinks he's about to escape the Krusty Krab and actually follow his dreams of performing. But, oh no, Squidward.
I sent him my play and now he's gonna produce it! I quit. So long, losers! We announce we will not be doing your play!
One of the most important examples of Squidward quitting his job is in the episode Can You Spare a Dime?, where Squidward is accused of stealing one of Mr. Krabs' dimes. Because of this, Squidward decides to quit his job. And as the episode goes on, we learn that Squidward couldn't find a job and actually becomes homeless. SpongeBob let him into his house, but Squidward ended up taking advantage of him. This drove SpongeBob absolutely insane, which forced Mr. Krabs to give Squidward his job back. So in all the episodes, Squidward quit his job, only to come right back. But why? The only reason Squidward was able to come back is because he had quit his job instead of getting fired. If he got fired, he wouldn't have been able to come back, and would have been forced to look for a new job. The only time Squidward was fired was in the episode Squid on Strike, where him and SpongeBob were fired for planning to go on strike. After being fired, they decided to strike after a ton of protesting. Mr. Krabs gives them their jobs back, but while discussing the terms, SpongeBob ended up destroying the Krusty Krab, and after, Mr. Krabs declared that they would be working for him forever. And that is one of the reasons why Squidward can't quit, because he is being forced to work for Mr. Krabs forever, is what I would say if there weren't two things. One, because in the season 9 episode SpongeBob You're Fired, Mr. Krabs fired SpongeBob. The second, and even bigger reason, is that Squidward had quit his job a ton of times after that episode, without Mr. Krabs really saying anything, proving that Mr. Krabs either doesn't care about what he said, or that wasn't canon. Both of these put down the claim that they would have to work for Mr. Krabs forever. But why can't Squidward find a job? Why is he being forced to work at the Krusty Krab forever? Well, in the episode Goodbye Krabby Patty, we actually get a solid answer to this, because in the episode, we see Squidward state that 17 years as a cashier is not good enough.
Apparently you need more than 17 years behind a cash register to be qualified for dreams.
Well, this doesn't add up at all when you really think about it. My boy SpongeBob, who wasn't even born yet when Squidward had already been working at the Krusty Krab, managed to get a brand new job almost instantly after being fired. And not just one job either. SpongeBob has been shown getting hired at multiple different places almost without any effort. Like, it's second nature to him. Though why is it that SpongeBob, who can do the exact same things as Squidward, and Squidward, who can technically do the same things as SpongeBob, don't have the same outcome? SpongeBob gets a job almost instantly, yet Squidward never seems to get a chance. What on earth is wrong with him? Is he not even putting a finger on a job application? Or is he purposely avoiding trying because he secretly wants to stay in the Krusty Krab despite hating it? Or is SpongeBob just absolutely goated? I don't know. But a good example of an episode where Squidward does actually try to get a new job is in the episode Squid on Strike, where at first he finally, for once, does something about it. He leaves the Krusty Krab with SpongeBob and protests against Mr. Krabs. For a moment, it looks like he's done, like he's finally free. But then he realizes that striking means being stuck with SpongeBob forever, and he absolutely does not want that. So what does he do? He goes crawling back to Mr. Krabs, begging for his job back. But not once does he try to find a different job with a better boss, less stress, and most importantly, no SpongeBob. And that's the weird part. Squidward actually actually want to stay at the Krusty Krab. Even if it makes him miserable, he gets paid basically nothing, 23 cents an hour, and he still acts like he can't live without that paycheck. It's like he'd rather sit in the same awful place with the same awful boss than try risking something new. Maybe it's easier for him to deal with the misery he knows and the unknown of something different. Mr. Krabs even uses this against him. In the episode Whale Watch, he threatens Squidward with SpongeBob to get him to babysit Pearl, and it works. Squidward hates SpongeBob so much that just the thought of being sick is enough to make him give in, and that's how stuck he really is. He knows he hates the Krusty Krab, but for whatever reason, he keeps coming back, almost like he's trapping himself there on purpose. So if Squidward despises his job, why would he keep a job he desperately hates with every drop of sweat he produces while working there? Well, the only reason he would do this is out of desperation to not go homeless. Or is it? Well, what really makes us question this is in the season 2 episode Squidville, where Squidward moves to a gated off community that's only for squids to get away from his worst two enemies, Patrick and SpongeBob. The only problem is we see a 14-day montage of him living life, but not once does he work at a job. Well, how is he making money then? Well, he might have savings, cause how else could he possibly be making money without a job? On top of that, he misses the chaos caused by SpongeBob and Patrick, meaning that he hasn't seen them since he moved in, crossing out the idea that his job simply wasn't in the montage. And it's not like he just starved on the way, because he also bought canned bread, proving the idea that he had some kind of money. Another thing to prove that he had savings is that he didn't go homeless. This doesn't really answer the question of why the Krusty Krab. He has savings, so it's clearly not out of desperation. Well, in the episode Goodbye Krabby Patty is an episode showing Squidward quitting his job, but running right back for his job, saying that 17 hours behind a cash register isn't enough. But we already know this isn't true, when SpongeBob instantly gets hired at a ton of new places with very little experience at all. One of those places SpongeBob works at when he gets fired is the fancy restaurant where we see SpongeBob get traded for a gourmet chef in return. But why would Mr. Krabs trade SpongeBob? Wait, no, not even arguably, clearly his most loyal worker, instead of Squidward? And yes, I know it's a chef exchange program. As we can see, Squidward can cook just as well as SpongeBob when he actually puts in effort, but he's nowhere near as dedicated or loyal. In the very same episode, SpongeBob literally fights for his life just because Squidward managed to get Employee of the Month for a single time out of the 374 times that SpongeBob has earned it. That kind of loyalty and determination shows the huge difference between them. And it makes you wonder, does Mr. Krabs maybe need Squidward? I mean, why else would he need him if SpongeBob is so much more loyal than Squidward? Well, Squidward was most likely Mr. Krabs' first employee, working there even before SpongeBob and Jim, who was the first fry cook. But absolutely none of this explains why Mr. Krabs would need Squidward. Now, a good explanation for this is either that Squidward helped create the secret formula, or he's the reason for the Krusty Krab being successful in the first place. I mean, Squidward has made the Krabby Patty plenty of times. Surely, he has to know the formula, right? Well, surprisingly, he doesn't. You see this in the episode Sweet and Sour Squid, where Plankton tries his absolute hardest to get the formula from Squidward. But by the end of the episode, Squidward just blurts out the fact that he doesn't even know the formula.
What do they put in one of those Krabby Patties anyway?
Oh, I don't work the grill. I work the register.
So that crosses out that possibility. But we still have the possibility that Mr. Krabs needs Squidward because of his good doings for the restaurant. I mean, in the SpongeBob movie, Squidward is crowned the manager of the Krusty Krab instead of SpongeBob, where he just goes absolutely bonkers about not being the manager. This creates a possibility that when Mr. Krabs retires, he wants to give the restaurant to Squidward. Though this gets all thrown out the window. And I mean completely thrown out the window when SpongeBob is later handed over the job like it's nothing. I mean, come on, Mr. Krabs. But this isn't even close to the biggest reason that Squidward can't ever get ownership of the restaurant, or even be treated like he's somewhat important. The truth is, Mr. Krabs gives Squidward absolutely no respect at all, and that really goes to show know that Mr. Krabs does not see Squidward as a partner, or even as a valued employee whatsoever. He sees him as nothing more than a tool, someone to keep the front of the restaurant running while SpongeBob does the cooking. Mr. Krabs uses Squidward only for work purposes, never acknowledging his years of service or any effort that he puts in. I mean, take the season 8 episode, Chum Fricassee. For example, Mr. Krabs straight up disrespects Squidward like it's nothing. He literally insults him and doesn't even try to hide how little he cares. It's moments like this that make it clear Squidward could never rise up or own the place, no matter how long he's working there. To Mr. Krabs, Squidward is replaceable, but also way too convenient to actually let go. So if all of that gets crossed out, we're out of ideas, right? Well, there's one singular, tiny thing that is put on a simple piece of paper that we haven't looked into yet, which is Squidward's paycheck. Because like we said earlier, Mr. Krabs can get away with paying Squidward next to nothing, making nothing but $600 a year, working 40 hours a week. Compared to SpongeBob, that's pennies, as we clearly see in the episode Squeaky Boots, where Mr. Krabs gives SpongeBob a stack of cash for his paycheck.
Here's your paycheck, I owe ya. Plus a bonus.
Now, Mr. Krabs does end up taking away that bonus for vacation, but that's still a stack of cash, probably $10 bills, being that SpongeBob makes a lot more than Squidward does. And I would like to point out that in the episode SpongeBob You're Fired, SpongeBob does state that he gets paid 5 cents a day, making him earn $18.25 a year, but this is more than likely not canon, and the stack of cash scene most likely was, as seasons 1 through 3 were the most canonical seasons in the show, which is the season that the stack of cash takes place. Now, some proof that Mr. Krabs doesn't only fire Squidward because of his paycheck are in the episodes like Can You Spare a Dime, where even after Squidward steals a dime, Mr. Krabs doesn't fire him because he knows that a dime is not worth having to hire someone that would get paid way more than Squidward. Another example is in the episode Krusty Carniceries, where Mr. Krabs doesn't let Squidward die so that he can make him work tonight. And one of the most important examples is in the episode The Original Fry Cook, where Squidward doesn't mind getting paid very little because he's just waiting for his music to blow up.
No thanks. I'm just doing this until my clarinet career takes off.
Now, as seen later in the episode, we see Jim ask for a raise and get laughed at by Krabs, which is where Jim quits. If Squidward actually had the balls to quit and stay out of the Krusty Krab, he could have had a future like Jim. Sadly, he's not anywhere near as brave or as talented as Jim. For this reason, Squidward is the perfect target for Mr. Krabs to sabotage, control, and exploit. Well, it's very clear why Mr. Krabs wants Squidward, but we all know Squidward doesn't want to be at the Krusty Krab at all. I mean, we all know that Squidward wants one thing, a career with his clarinet. However, he's clearly not successful at this at all, so he only has one person to blame, himself, right? Well, is he really the right person to blame? Well, absolutely not, because in episodes like Suction Cup Symphony, Best Day Ever, Band Geeks, and The Patty Caper, Squidward actually succeeds in his dreams of being a famous artist. Does that mean that Squidward is actually talented? Well, unfortunately not, because in episodes like I Heart Dancing, Are You Happy Now, and You Snooze You Lose, he shows no talent whatsoever. But in one interesting episode, Best Day Ever, we might see something that explains everything. You see, in this episode, Squidward actually heavily succeeds in his clarinet career, but Patrick ends up making fun of Squidward for not knowing how to play the clarinet, despite Squidward actually playing fairly decently.
Don't let those sour notes bring you down.
So what if people hate Squidward because he's simply Squidward, and not because of his music? Well, we get to see more of this in episodes Slimy Dancing and Squidwood, where Squidward does something and everyone hates it, but SpongeBob replicates the exact actions and gets praised for it. They hate everything Squidward does because he's Squidward. This would explain the outro for a ton of reasons, like Suction Cup Symphony, Artist Unknown, and Geeks, and of course, Best Day Ever. They all show Squidward massively succeeding in the artist industry, but nothing, not $1 comes out of it, because, well, he's Squidward. Nothing will ever turn out well for him. But there might be one more reason behind all of this. Something causing Squidward to never succeed. Something pulling the strings from the very start. The mastermind behind it all. The one controlling Squidward's fate is none other than Mr. Krabs himself. Think about it. We already know Mr. Krabs thrives on exploiting Squidward. And to exploit someone means you'll never, in a million years, allow them to succeed in anything outside of what benefits you. Sounds like Mr. Krabs is controlling Squidward, doesn't it? For Squidward, that means he'll have to be chained to the Krusty Krab forever. Every time he shows even a little bit of ambition, something always happens that'll pull him back. And who benefits the most from that? Mr. Krabs. By keeping Squidward trapped, Mr. Krabs ensures a reliable worker who he can pay almost nothing, disrespect, and manipulate, while making sure Squidward never achieves real happiness or success anywhere else. Do you still remember this clip?
I sent him my play and now he's gonna produce it. I quit. So long, losers, that we announce we will not be doing your play.
I mean, he would go out of his way to explode Squidward's career, just for him to stay. Well, unsurprisingly, yes.
If you two do find that clarinet, could you bring it to me? So I can smash it to pieces!
This goes to show in the episode The Play's the Thing, where Mr. Krabs commercializes the hate towards Squidward after people throw things at him for his performance. Not just that, in the episode The Masterpiece, Mr. Krabs makes Squidward build a whole entire statue for him without telling him what it's going to be used for. By the end of the episode, Mr. Krabs just switches up and doesn't display the statue that Squidward made, making it a lot harder for Squidward to get recognition for his work. But by far the biggest example of this is in the episode Hello Bikini Bottom. SpongeBob and Squidward get recognized as a musical duo by Canole Carper, who was a band manager. This finally launches their dreams of being rich and famous. But guess who sabotages them? Eugene Harold Krabs. Yup, this was Squidward's first and last chance to make it big. But right in the middle of them becoming a star, Mr. Krabs takes over as manager and ruins not only his chances of becoming rich, but SpongeBob and Squidward's chances too, just so that they could keep working for him. This is where it all leads to our answer. Mr. Krabs exploits and controls Squidward, sabotaging every piece of fame he gets, making it impossible for Squidward to create a successful music career. And Squidward can't leave the Krusty Krab if his music career never takes off. Mr. Krabs has also made sure that Squidward cannot and will not, under any circumstances, put him in a cycle where, until he dies, he keeps quitting his job, hoping he gets big. He fails in the music industry, can't get another job because of his reputation, and is run into the ground by Mr. Krabs, making everyone hate him for who he is. And he never comes back to the Krusty Krab. Mr. Krabs knows he can't leave, so he exploits his services for the longest he can. The cycle repeats and will never stop, because no matter what Squidward does, he will never be famous. Until he gets another job, he will be forced to make next to nothing with his two greatest enemies, until he dies. This also explains why Squidward is sometimes happy about being fired, because he just needs that one little push for him to build up the courage and walk away. Mr. Krabs has, whether intentionally or not, positioned himself as the barrier between Squidward and any hope of success. Every time Squidward reaches for something better, whether it's an art show or concert, Mr. Krabs is there to pull him back down and exploit him further. It almost feels like Mr. Krabs has made it his life mission to ensure that Squidward never escapes the cycle of continuous failure. After all, if Squidward were actually to succeed, he might leave the Krusty Krab for good, but we know that wouldn't happen with Mr. Krabs there to sabotage it. This ties us back to the story of Jim, the fry cook who worked under Mr. Krabs before SpongeBob. Jim became successful, moved on, and never looked back. That loss must have stung Krabs deeply, not just financially, but personally. His greatest worker, proving that life beyond the Krusty Krab was not only possible, but better. Perhaps Krabs has learned his lesson. Never ever allow another employee to get that close to reaching their true potential. And Squidward, with his artistic dreams and need for fame, represents the perfect target for this kind of subtle sabotage. It's depressing to think about, because the show often hints that Squidward does have talent and intelligence buried beneath his bitterness. But Mr. Krabs' greed greed ensures that any glimpse of success Squidward finds is redirected back towards the same greasy grill and dirty cash register. This creates a loop where Squidward, despite hating his job, has no choice but to keep returning. The saddest part is that we might never know if Squidward could have made it big. The show never depicts Squidward's future, or him being famous, or being stuck at the Krusty Krab forever, is what I would say if the episode PL1413 didn't exist. In this episode, Plankton travels 2,000 years into the future. As he explores what the world has become, Karen fills him in on the history of certain characters, including Squidward. And what she reveals is honestly just straight up sad. She explains that Squidward did in fact end up becoming famous, just like he's always dreamed of. But there's a catch. His recognition and fame only came after his passing. That means throughout his entire life, Squidward never got to experience the success, respect, or admiration he'd always wanted so badly. But instead, he spent the rest of his life stuck at the Krusty Krab, suffering under Mr. Krabs' exploitation. This shows that no matter how much talent he had, or how hard he tried to get away, he remained trapped in the same cycle of misery. It's pretty sad, because while Squidward was chasing his passion his whole life, he never once got to live what he wanted. All because of one man, Eugene Harold Krabs. Subscribe, or this will happen to you in real life. That was a threat. Subscribe. From the Krusty Krab's first fry cook to Squidward's girlfriend, there are over 18 characters in SpongeBob who have only appeared once. And today, we're gonna go over what happened to every single one of them. Starting with Squilvia, who made her one and only appearance in the episode Love That Squid. And when she walks into the Krusty Krab at the beginning of the episode, Squidward can't seem to get enough of her.
Jeez, wow.
The moment Squidward tries to ask her on a date, he completely falls apart, because my boy Squidward has negative riz. But SpongeBob, being the good friend that he is, steps in and does the talking, saying a bunch of good things about Squidward, and making her interested in wanting to go on a date with him. After the date secured at Squidward's house for later that night, we find out that Squidward hasn't gone on a date since what looks like the 1800s. So SpongeBob brings him over to his house to give him some lessons on how to have a successful date. SpongeBob's genius idea is to pretend to be a girl and take him on a practice date, and SpongeBob teaches him a bunch of things, like how to be a gentleman, small talk, and other stuff that SpongeBob thinks Squidward will need to know on his date.
Now this is the perfect opportunity to work on your table etiquette.
But with only 5 minutes to spare until his date, after all of his training, Squidward leaves to go out for his date, but SpongeBob runs after him trying to tell him one more thing. But it turns out, this might not have been the smartest idea, because Squidward started crashing out.
And never will be.
Does this mean there won't be a second date?
You just saw that, didn't you?
Instead of storming off, Squilvia says that he actually likes his sarcastic attitude, and they happily go off on their date. So where is Squilvia now? Well, there's been no official news about where she is, but we can actually see her appear in the 20th anniversary picture of SpongeBob, meaning that she's probably still alive. But next, whatever happened to Jim, who was actually the Krusty Krab's first fry cook, and he makes his one and only appearance in the episode The Original Fry Cook, where Jim randomly shows up for a visit in his solid gold limo to go on a trip down memory lane. As soon as Jim walks through the door, he shows why everyone in the Krusty Krab loves him. He makes the perfect Krabby Patties, aka Jim Patties. But SpongeBob wants to learn from the best and improve his Krabby Patty skills. So he learns from Jim and tries to match how to make the Krabby Patties as good as him. But no matter how hard SpongeBob tries, he can't seem to match how good Jim's patties are. Throughout this episode, SpongeBob sees how everyone else in the Krusty Krab seems to like Jim way more than him, and he feels like Jim is gonna replace his job. So he makes a resignation letter and plans to quit working at the Krusty Krab. Mr. Krab and Jim track him down and later find him in a freezer.
So it is with a heavy heart that I relinquish my position as fry cook.
And this is where Jim reveals that he's not actually wanting to replace SpongeBob's job. And Jim himself ended up quitting the Krusty Krab years ago because Mr. Krabs wouldn't give him a raise. So where is he now? Most likely, Jim went back to his solid gold house, in his solid gold bus, and started a solid gold Michelin star restaurant, where he's probably the most famous chef in Bikini Bottom, and doesn't get paid minimum wage by Mr. Krabs. Next, what happened happened to Janet and Marty, who only appear once in the episode I'm With Stupid. And in this episode, Patrick is nervous because he thinks his parents are coming to visit, and his parents think that he is really dumb, which Patrick is actually insecure about. So to help Patrick look smart, SpongeBob agrees to act completely dumb for the day when they come over. And it makes sense why Patrick dreaded his parents coming over so much, because they treat him like an absolute idiot.
Son, you recognized us this time.
Why wouldn't I recognize my own parents?
But thankfully, right on cue, SpongeBob shows up and he starts acting really dumb, which makes his parents think that Patrick isn't as dumb as they think.
Protective helmet? Check. I'm supposed to look stupid, Gary. What could go wrong?
For most of the visit, Patrick loves the attention. He's finally feeling like the smartest person in the room. But the plan falls apart when Patrick starts teasing SpongeBob too, hurting his friend's feelings. Just as the argument reaches its peak, when SpongeBob's trying to prove that he's actually not dumb, another pair of starfish knock on the door. These newcomers reveal that they're also Patrick's parents. And then Janet and Marty have the realization that they don't even have a son.
Oh, that's right, honey. We don't have a son.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's just in starfish DNA to be really dumb. So where did Janet and Marty go? Well, I don't know, probably a nursing home, because I don't know how stupid you have to be to forget that you don't have kids. But whatever happened to girly teen girl, who made their one and only appearance in the episode The Slumber Party? We get introduced to her at Mr. Krabs' house, when Pearl kicks Mr. Krabs out of the house because she's gonna have a slumber party, which forces Mr. Krabs to stay with SpongeBob for the night. But it's hard for Mr. Krabs to not get curious on what's going on in his own home when he's not there. So SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs go over and try to spy on them.
Leave it to me, Mr. K. I've got the perfect disguise.
Hello?
But although it seemed like a very obviously bad disguise that SpongeBob's wearing, it actually turned out to be a real character, who has no known affiliation with SpongeBob, which made fans wonder, could she be a distant cousin or even a forgotten sister? Unfortunately, the show never explained or explored this connection further, and after this episode, she was never seen again. But where is girly teen girl today? My theory is that she moved all the way back to Farawayville like she said in the episode. The creators likely found her character too confusing, or felt she had served her purpose for a single comedic scenario. But what happened to SpongeBob's cousin, Blackjack? Blackjack's one and only appearance is in the episode appropriately named Blackjack, and it starts with SpongeBob getting a postcard saying that his older cousin is out of prison and is coming over, which instantly gives SpongeBob PTSD about all of the memories of his brother beating him up when he was just a little sponge, and that terrifies him, thinking about how much stronger Blackjack must be now.
Just imagine what he must look like now.
Hi, SpongeBob. It's been a while. Good to see you're still a little man.
This makes SpongeBob worried that Blackjack might be terrorizing his parents right now, so he runs over there as fast as he can, just to see that it's all boarded up. And everywhere SpongeBob goes in this episode, he keeps seeing weird clues and getting panic attacks that Blackjack is out to get him, until he finally goes over to Blackjack's house. And when they confront each other, it turns out that Blackjack actually hasn't grown since he was a little sponge. So where is Blackjack now? Well, my theory is that he's still living in Bikini Bottom, and maybe he even shows up in the background sometimes, but he's just too small for anyone to notice him, which I assume makes his life pretty hard. Next, what happened to Plank Crab, who is a weird combination of Mr. Krabs and Plankton, and his one and only appearance is in the episode The Krusty Bucket, and Plankton makes this abomination from using Plankton and Mr. Krabs' DNA in a machine, and he tries to use this guy to steal the secret formula for him, which actually works. But this backfires because in the process, he kicks Mr. Krabs out of his own restaurant and completely takes over the Krusty Krab. But this absolute train wreck of a creature's greed doesn't stop there, because he ends up taking over the Chum Bucket too, and merging them together, turning it into the Krusty Bucket. So now, Plankton and Mr. Krabs have to do something they've never done before if they want to stop Plank Crab and get their restaurants back.
There's only one way to get our restaurants back, Eugene.
You don't mean...
We gotta work together.
So they try a bunch of different things to defeat him. First, they try jumping him in a back alley of the Krusty Krab, but they aren't strong enough to take him on their own. Next, they try making a competitor restaurant, but Plank Crab quite literally turns it into a drive-thru. Get it? So they go in wanting their restaurants back, but after being forced to become toilet cleaners in their own restaurants, they start crashing out and fighting each other, in the process completely destroying the bathroom, which when he sees it, causes Plank Crab to split apart in anger, and then it eventually defeats itself because of their arguing. And it's pretty obvious where Plank Crab went, because in the episode, we literally see him die. But whatever happened to the hash-slinging slasher? He appears in the episode The Graveyard Shift, and in this episode, Squidward wants to get some revenge for SpongeBob being annoying to him all night. So he tells him a really detailed story about a man named the hash-slinging slasher. He has a spatula for an arm, and every Tuesday night, he lurks outside. And you know he's coming because first, the lights flicker, then the phone starts ringing and no one picks up. After that, a guy will arrive off a bus, and then finally, he gets you. But what started as an obviously made up story quickly turns into a nightmare for both of them, because later in the night shift, out of nowhere, the lights start actually flickering, and then shortly after the phone rings, and guess what? Nobody picks up. Squidward starts getting terrified as his own scary story is coming to life, but then, to put the icing on the cake, a bus comes, and a random guy hops off of it, and if it couldn't get any worse, he reveals that he has a spatula for an arm. The hash-slinging slasher is actually real, and he makes his way busting into the Krusty Krab to get SpongeBob and Squidward.
Can I have a job application? I brought my own spatula.
Yeah, it turns out this was just some random dude, and everything that happened that night was just a pure coincidence. But there's one thing that still isn't adding up.
Wait, if that was you on the phone and you on the bus, then who was flickering the lights?
Nosferatu!
And although this dude, whose name is Nosferatu, seems really random, and he appears in multiple other SpongeBob episodes, for some reason, so he's not a one-time character. But where did my boy, the hash-slinging slasher, go? Well, he's probably going off to some other restaurants at 3 AM to find a job, and scaring the ever-living crap out of people in Bikini Bottom with other made-up stories about him. But what happened to Karen 2, who made their one appearance in the episode Karen 2.0. Plankton thinks his original computer wife, Karen, is too slow, so he orders a high-tech model. This new unit is slim, voice-activated, and full of attitude. Plankton loves the upgrade at first, because Karen 2 can plan sneaky schemes in half the time. Karen, the original, gets tossed out in the trash. SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs find this, and Mr. Krabs, liking anything that's free, decides to take it inside and plug in Karen thinking it's a computer system. And when they plug her in, Karen is really sad, and she wants nothing to do with Plankton anymore. But Mr. Krabs sees this, and can't pass up the opportunity to get some free unpaid labor.
She's efficient, and more importantly, I don't have to pay her.
So, I'm fired?
But later, Karen 2 and Plankton barge into the Krusty Krab trying to steal the secret formula. But then, Karen 2.0 gets distracted, and they start having a fight in the middle of the Krusty Krab. The original Karen ends up winning the fight, and returns to the chum bucket where she belongs. And for Karen 2, she blows up at the end of the episode, getting killed off for good. But what happened to Snelly? Snelly's first appearance is in the episode The Great Snail Race, where Squidward gets a racing pet snail that he ends up naming Snelly get delivered to him. And the reason he does this is because Squidward enters a fancy snail race to show off his purebred racer. And seeing this sparks SpongeBob's competitive side. So he starts off a brutal boot camp routine for Gary.
Faster, go, go, go! Come on, push it, Gary, push, go fast!
Which nearly ends up killing him. Race day arrives, and Snelly goes really fast and easily takes the win, while Gary, exhausted from overtraining, crawls a few inches and then quite literally completely crashes out. But just when Snelly is about to finish the race, she sees Gary in bad condition and goes over to help him.
Gary?
And after this, at the end of the episode, Patrick and his rock ends up winning the race, and Snelly was never seen again. So where is Snelly now? Well, my first guess would be that she died, because according to Google, snails only live for 1 to 10 years. But this is SpongeBob we're talking about, so since Gary's alive, she's probably alive too. But we know very well that Squidward isn't keeping her anymore after this race, because he just used her to win. So my guess is that she's living somewhere in Bikini Bottom in a snail shelter, hopefully under good care. But next, what happened to Miss Griddlepuss? Miss Griddlepuss only appears once in the episode Banded Bikini Bottom. She walks into the Krusty Krab with her 5 sisters, and they just wanted some Krabby Patties. But unfortunately, their first impression of the Krusty Krab is SpongeBob spinning around and singing about how fun and delicious the patties are.
I like Krabby Patties. I think they're swell. I like Krabby Patties. Can you not tell? Krabby Patties, they're so neat. La 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 la, sweet to eat.
And believe me, fun is the last thing that she wants. Miss Griddlepuss leads a group called the United Organization of Fish Against Things That Are Fun and Delicious. She marches straight to the city hall to complain, and uses her pull with the police chief to get the Krusty Krab shut down that exact same day. But Mr. Krabs refuses to give up. He moves the grill and every table into SpongeBob's house, and runs a secret restaurant at night. Customers pack the place, but Plankton notices this and tips off the cops, hoping to see Mr. Krabs arrested. Officers bust in and start destroying Krabby Patties, ready to drag SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs to jail. Miss Griddlepuss arrives to watch the takedown. At that moment, her husband drops off a fresh patty, and the burger slips straight into her mouth. One bite changes everything. She absolutely loves it, sings along with SpongeBob, and lifts the ban on the spot.
Krabby Patties, I think they're swell. Can you not tell? Krabby Patties, they're so neat. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la.
Really neat.
After this episode, Miss Griddlepuss never returns to Bikini Bottom. But where is she now? Well, she probably went back home, writing new rules for a club that only allow one special treat: Krabby Patties on weekends, as long as nobody's having too much fun. But what happened to Spongetron, Pattron, Primitive SpongeBob, and Primitive Patrick? All 4 of these characters pop up in the episode called SB-129, where Squidward goes into a time machine and ends up in several different places. First, he finds himself in the future, in a 100% aluminum-coated Bikini Bottom. There, he meets Spongetron, who looks exactly like SpongeBob, except he has clones of himself and can fly with rocket jets. Then, we also meet Pattron, who is just like Patrick, except he has 2 heads for some reason. Both of them still love jellyfishing, and act essentially the same as SpongeBob and Patrick. So he gets into a time machine, and this time machine accidentally throws him way too far into the past. Before Bikini Bottom even had houses, Squidward tumbles out into a muddy field and bumps into Primitive SpongeBob and Primitive Patrick. And somehow they're even dumber versions of SpongeBob and Patrick. They communicate with grunts, bang random objects together, and even purposely sting themselves with jellyfish. After a quick panic, Squidward mashes the controls again on the time machine to finally go back to his own time period. So where are all these characters now? Well, it's pretty obvious that they were all versions of themselves from the past and the future. So all of the characters are just living in timelines that SpongeBob and Patrick's lives entail, which gets into a whole lot of other things. Like, this means that SpongeBob and Patrick are technically immortal and have lived since the very beginning of time. But that's a whole nother video for a whole nother day. But back to one-time characters. Next, what happened to Sam Star? Sam shows up in the episode Big Sister Sam. Patrick is humming along outside his rock, waiting for his sister Sam to show up, who he hasn't seen in years, when suddenly the ground starts shaking, and then we see Sam, and let's just say that she is basically Queso's cousin.
Long way. Yellow square, Dutch rubber. Make Sister Sam mad. I cleaned my rock just for you.
After she gets out of control, from literally building a new house out of sand, to destroying Squidward's house, and using spare parts from his house to build up their house, it's clear that Sam does not belong there and is causing way too big of a mess.
Sister Sam, rearrange now!
Please don't.
After literally stopping a bulldozer, Patrick tries to reason with his sister, and it's not until she hurts Patrick that she ends up feeling bad and leaves town. So where is she now? Most likely, Sam's roaming around breaking everything and eating everything she can get her hands on. But what happened to Jack M. Crazyfish, who appears in the episode Blackened Sponge? It starts off right away with SpongeBob being really buff, fighting Jack M. Crazyfish in his dream, and after SpongeBob's dream, he goes to the bathroom and gives himself a black eye in the stupidest way possible.
Ooh, what a relief! For a second there, I thought I gave myself a black eye.
So trying to disguise this, he goes out with glasses, but when Patrick catches on, he doesn't want to admit how he actually got the black eye. So SpongeBob makes up a fake story about Jack M. Crazyfish from his dream, and he plays it off as being a real thing, and saying that Jack M. Crazyfish gave him a black eye in the most epic and manly way possible.
He threw a giant tire at the back of my head. Then he stood over me to gloat. I jumped up and karate kicked his hairpiece right off of its snaps. He was so ashamed, he ran all the way home.
But after lying to everyone in town, like Patrick, Sandy, and the entire customer base of the Krusty Krab, making his story more extreme every time, he starts to build a really big ego because of his black eye. But then the worst possible thing happens. It turns out that Jack M. Crazyfish is actually real.
He's real.
So SpongeBob runs back home and brings his toothpaste and his wrench to prove how he actually got the black eye in the first place. Which honestly, Jack M. Crazyfish didn't even really care about because he just wanted a Krabby Patty. So where is Jack M. Crazyfish now? Well, my guess is that he's from another town where SpongeBob might have been on vacation one time, and he might have remembered how he looked, thus being in SpongeBob's dream. But he had a British accent, so I would assume he's from the UK. But it's underwater, so I'm not exactly sure how that works. Finally, last but not least, what happened to Stanley SquarePants? Stanley's one appearance was in the episode appropriately titled Stanley S. SquarePants, and at the beginning, he literally shows up in a box, and it's actually revealed that he's SpongeBob's cousin. But there's one big problem. Everything he touches falls apart, quite literally.
Uncle Sherm won't let me watch TV back at home. Why not? That's why.
SpongeBob wants to help, so he brings Stanley to the Krusty Krab and tries to teach him the basics of flipping Krabby Patties. And in less than 2 minutes, Stanley sets the cash register on fire, cracks SpongeBob's spatula, and even takes sus pictures with customers. But after every incident clearly caused by Stanley, SpongeBob takes the blame for it so that Stanley doesn't get in trouble. And in the end of the episode, SpongeBob crashes out and exposes Stanley.
Break my spatula, he did! And I also didn't burn your money, he did that too! I have been covering for him because he can't do anything right!
But this gives Mr. Krabs the genius idea to ship Stanley off to the chum bucket, which ends up working completely as intended, because the entire building gets blown up in seconds. So where is Stanley now? Well, he probably moved on after the chum bucket collapsed. Maybe he joined a demolition crew where he's breaking things as part of his job. Or maybe, most likely, he's being a bum and still destroying everything he touches. Whatever he's doing though, one thing is certain. If Stanley is nearby, stuff is falling apart. But yeah, those are all the one-time characters I could find. If I missed any, make sure to let me know in the comments. But because you made it all the way to the end, you might as well not just be a one-time viewer. So make sure to click that red, juicy subscribe button. Come on, you know you want to click it. I just started this channel, and I'm going to be making the best SpongeBob content for you guys.